Welcome to this Get a Six Figure Job You Love podcast and YouTube channel. This is episode 229 of the Get a Six Figure Job You Love podcast. And today I'm doing something a little different. I'm talking about the 9-step process for spiritually aligned successful actions. And I'm going to go through each of the 9 steps and I'm going to give you a little overview of how I used to operate versus how I operate now, and how much better it feels and how much more successful it is and how much things will work better and flow better and are easier than before. Because I think probably a lot of you are operating how I was operating before. And that's because that's how I was taught to. That's how I learned to. That's kind of how school would have us learn to operate and move through the world. And so I just want to offer you something a little different today. And if this resonates with you, I hope that you can start seeing a lot more ease in your daily processes and your daily actions towards success as well, because it doesn't have to be as hard as we make it for ourselves. So let's dive into the 9-step process. So the first process, or the first step, is figuring out what you desire. And a lot of people miss this step, right? And a lot of people get caught up in this step, and it takes a really long time to figure out what they want, and then they don't really go towards anything, or they just kind of end up taking whatever comes along because they haven't decided. They haven't energetically decided. They haven't wholeheartedly decided. And because making that decision is scary, a lot of the times people will be like, well, I like a lot of things. I don't want to cut off the opportunity for something else. But just know that when you have a decision made, it is going to be easier to see where your path forward is going to be. So I had a client who comes to mind. Her name is Carol, and she was like, I'm not getting interviews. I'm not getting interviews. And we pinpointed that the problem was that she didn't know what she actually wanted, right? So she was applying for a bunch of stuff, and it was kind of like a haphazard attempt at just submitting things here, submitting things there, but it wasn't a focused process. And this is just a very common thing to just skip, right? Just especially if you are in, like, you're feeling desperate or in frantic action, you're just like, oh, I got to do something, I got to take action right now. And you don't take the time to energetically decide on what you want. And that is a very underrated step. So that's the first step. And then also, then once you decide, your brain's going to come up with a bunch of reasons why either you shouldn't have this, or why this is not possible, or all these things come up after that, right? Which is why it's sometimes scary to make a decision in the first place, right? Because if you don't make a decision, then you're stuck in the I don't know. Yeah, you're stuck in the I don't know. So you don't have to move forward. You don't have to take a risk, an emotional risk. You don't have to do anything out of your comfort zone if you're in that I don't know space, right? So I would challenge you that you do know. You do know more about what you want than you think you know, and there are steps you can take, but you got to figure out what feels good, what feels aligned, what feels like fun for you, what feels like you're lit up by it, what are you called to? And that's a different kind of questioning than what should I do? What can I do? What would just be the fastest and the easiest, even though I don't really want it, right? Those are very different things, right? But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that once you figure out what you want out of inspiration, out of inspired guidance, out of a genuine desire, that's going to be not only more exciting to go after, you're going to keep the momentum going until you get it. It's going to be like much more worth it to be able to say, I went after what I wanted and I got that, right? So you have to believe, in my opinion, a core belief is that your desire is safe guidance. And if you want that thing, then you want it for a reason, because not everybody wants it, right? So there's a reason why I want to be sitting here today talking to you about your career goals, or helping you think bigger as far as what's possible for you, what you can do, how fulfilled you can be. Like, I want to be doing that, right? And so it helps me to show up every day knowing that that's a choice I made and that I want to continue to do that. And so your desires are safe guidance. That has to be, I believe, you don't have to take anything I say ever, but I believe that is an important core belief, because if you believe that your desire is safe guidance, then you can release like shame around wanting it, or like not feeling worthy of it because you're like, no, that's in me for a reason. I'm supposed to go after it. It's like my compass, it's pointing me in that direction. That's what I'm meant to do. I'm going to go do that. I'm supposed to figure that out. And if you end up giving up or quitting on yourself at one point, likelihood is that desire is going to come back and it's going to keep nagging you. You're going to keep thinking about it. You're going to keep wishing that you could had done it, had tried harder, had really gone for it, right? If it's a true desire. Okay. Number 2 is allowing all those things to come up and just paying attention to what comes up when you make the decision. So say if you make the decision to go after a particular job or particular position, say it's business analyst or something, you're like, I've decided I'm going to become a business analyst, right? Or I've got a lot of clients too who want to start businesses or who are starting businesses, right? That could be a decision as well. It's like, I've decided I want to start this business. I want to do this. This is the way I want to serve people. This is the way I want to help people, right? Then allow and watch for all those things to come in that your brain is going to say. It's going to probably, and this is very normal, just so you know, it's going to come up with a bunch of reasons why you shouldn't do it. And it's like the self-doubt coming up, the everything that your brain can come up with to protect you, right? I have a YouTube video that's very famously referenced, and I talk about the self-doubt as being Max in the passenger seat. And Max is just the person he's like another person. He or she or they is another person. And they're the ones saying, well, you can't go there. Like, say if you decide you want to drive, the example I used was you want to drive to, I don't know, from Vancouver to San Francisco or Las Vegas or something. You want to drive there. And it's a long drive, but it's very exciting and it'll be very fun once you get there. Max, like say you've decided you're going to do that. Max is the person in the passenger seat who's along for the ride. And he's saying things like, oh, but what if you get stuck in traffic? What if your car breaks down? What if you get lost along the way? What if you get stranded in the middle of a desert and you can't get out? What if you die? What if you, Max is really good at coming up with all those things that will deter you from ever from taking that drive, right? And so you need to watch Max, listen to Max, say, yep, 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 okay, and then like counter all of his points. So if he says, yeah, well, what if we run out of gas? You can say, okay, well, we'll map out all the gas stations on the route, right? Or if he says, well, what if we get stuck in traffic? And you can say, okay, well, we'll make sure we've got AC and snacks and that we're well equipped, and we'll check the Google Maps to see, what routes have the most traffic and which ones are the best to go on. He might say, well, what if you get stuck in the desert and die? And you can say, okay, well, we'll make sure we've got plenty of like a spare supply of water, and we'll have some extra gas in case we get stranded, and we'll have a spare tire jack and all that. We'll do our best to prepare for that so that doesn't happen, right? Like you can be the counter to Max, and that's what you kind of have to do on the road to doing bigger things, right? Because Max is going to show up, he's going to sit there and he's going to be nagging you about all the things that you shouldn't be doing, right? He's like, well, what if this happens? What if this happens, right? And so there's an exercise you can do that I've given out for homework for my clients before, and it's deemed very useful. And it's like you write down everything Max says and like as an obstacle, and then you create a strategy for it. And you say, okay, this is the strategy we're going to handle. If this happens, we're going to handle it by doing this. If this happens, we're going to handle it by doing this, right? So you allow all those reasons to come up, and then you counter those reasons. So that's step 3. You decide to counter those reasons. And then you take it a step further and give it the most positive thing you could have to say. So if Max says, oh, what if we run out of gas? You can say, yeah, what if we don't? And what if we just breeze through and we've got gas stations all along the way and we know exactly where they are and it's going to work out perfectly, and we can have a spare gas canister in the back and it's going to be no problem. And, maybe we know someone in this city, or we know where the car shops are in case we break down, we'll be able to make it there, or we'll know who to call. Maybe we'll have AAA. Like you'll be able to call it out as what if the best happens, and if the worst happens, we have a plan for it anyway, right? It's kind of it gives Max nowhere to go, right? He has to kind of be like, okay, well, I guess we're going, and he might still have a negative attitude, but he can't counter anymore. He's like, okay, well, I guess that's a good solution or that could be helpful, right? So the step 3 is you counter the arguments that your brain's going to give you, and you start to entertain new, better ways that it could go. So What if it goes perfectly? What if we breeze through? What if we have the best time on that trip? What if we enjoy ourselves so much that we drive right through and we end up at the Grand Canyon and we end up having the best time and we're so exhausted because of how much fun we were having, right? Like, instead of all the things that could go wrong, you want to flip them very on purpose, very intentionally into what could go right, right? And then, of course, your brain won't necessarily believe that right away. It might be like, yeah, but there's still a chance this could go wrong. There's still a chance that could go wrong. Like I like these ideas. Like your brain's going to be like, oh, that's starting to feel pretty good. I do like the possibility of it going perfectly. I do love the possibility of that, breezing through and having so much fun. And like, yeah, I like that. I don't want to miss out on that experience, right? But your brain might still have those nagging safety thoughts from Max saying, oh, yeah, but you got to be careful because blah, blah, blah. So your job is to just start bringing yourself back to the things you want to believe and the things you want to think and the things you want to focus on. And this is the tricky part because you will have to do that literally 1,000 times a day sometimes, like 1,000,000 times a day. You got to do your work. And this is what I mean by the spiritual work. You've got to do that work first. This is like preparing yourself for the journey. So step number 4 is you start to entertain the new story. So the new story is the story you want to be, like you want to happen, your ideal scenario, right? So we can use real quick another example because this will be very relevant to a lot of my clients and people listening for the job search or for your career, for your promotion, right? Like if you decide I want to get a new job at higher pay doing this kind of work, or even if you decide I want to move up, I want to get this promotion, your brain is going to have all those things come in, right? It's going to be like, yeah, but what if you can't? What if they're not going to give it to you? They haven't given it to you this far. Oh, you've been rejected all these times. Oh, that's not going to work, blah, blah, blah. You already know you can't do it. You already tried, you failed, blah, blah, blah. It's going to tell you all those things, right? So your job is to let those things come up and then decide on what your counters are to those arguments and then tell a way better, more empowering story. And this is where coaching is fantastic because basically what a coach's job is to help you craft that empowering story so that it resonates specifically with you, right? I've had so many mic drop moments with my coaches where it just hits right where it needs to hit in my brain and I am literally set free, right? I had this doubt and then I couldn't release this doubt. I couldn't counter it. And then they either gave like the best argument for it that I could no longer argue. It's like kind of like they wiggled something loose in my brain where I was like, okay, I can no longer think that because if I think that now, I feel stupid. Like literally that doesn't even work for me anymore. So, and this is where coaching is just such a fantastic tool because that is what you like in the coaching school where I learned how to coach. It's like that was a step in the process, right? It's like now you offer new thoughts, and so I've become really good at going on like rampages for clients with new amazing huge mind-blowing possibility thoughts that they didn't think of, that allows them to start to see what that's like, right? And starts to help them be in a new energy, be in a new frame of mind, start to think something differently, start to feel something differently, and start to go off and create in a new way in the world, right? So to recap, first, you figure out what it is you desire. And part of that step is believing your desires are safe guidance and believing you're worthy of the desires. 2 is allowing all the things to come up that your brain says, are reasons for not doing it, are reasons you won't succeed, blah, blah, blah. 3 is you're going to counter them. You're going to give a counter argument to what those are. So it's like you're going to listen to the obstacles that Max gives you, then you're going to provide a strategy. And then 4 is you're going to start to entertain an even better possibility. Like, oh my God, what if this could be so great? What if it could go perfectly? What if this could happen? And then 5 is where you're going to start to have to embody that new way of being, right? Embodying the new person who you're becoming, who now believes this new thing can happen for you. Like, oh, this is going to be amazing. It's going to go perfectly. The trip's going to be so fun. We're going to meet this person, and then this person's going to help us here, and they're going to redirect us here, and I'm going to learn this. And then it's just going to come through perfectly. I'm not going to have to jump through a bunch of hoops. It's all going to be great. And starting to actually embody that story and live that story day to day and believe that story. Because you can have a new story, but then you don't necessarily believe it. So then it's work to believe it. And yes, you will have to shift yourself back over and over and over and over. Trust me. And if with some things, it is very sticky and it is very hard to do. But the beautiful thing is, our brain is capable of it. Like, we can literally do anything we want by changing our mind. And I'm immensely grateful for that, because I've seen it. Like, I can look at my trajectory. It's definitely an up, and then there's some downs and there's some stagnant periods, but it's trending up for sure, right? And so we can do this. So we might as well take advantage of this. But it is hard work. It is the spiritual, it is the mindset, it is the inner work that needs to be done before we start to do the outer stuff. So then you start embodying the new story. That's number 5. Okay. And then 6 is you double down on it. You make it a part of you. You start to embody to the point where you are that person, kind of like you're an actor or an actress who is embodying that experience. Like, you are having that experience now of it going really well, of things falling into place for you, of things working out for you, of you solving problems really quickly and strategically and efficiently when they don't work out for you, right? Like, just somebody who's moving through the world in a different way than you have been, right? So if, for example, you are getting rejected, right, but you're in that state of, this is working, this is happening for me, then immediately you do get the rejection, you will actually believe that it's a redirection, and you'll say, yep, that was safe protection, that was safe guidance, that happened for a reason. I know exactly that I'm on the right path. And like, you'll just have those embodied thoughts more easily, right? So then the next step, number 7, is releasing the attachment to the thing that you want. Okay, so then you're like, okay, I'm just working towards it. I'm becoming this person. I'm feeling it. I'm vibing it. It's happening. And you just know that it is. And you're looking for the opportunities to take the opportunities. You're looking for things to respond to in your world. And you know that they're going to show up, right? You know that you're going to be guided. You know that you're going to be led. You know that you're going to have an idea. Like, you trust that that stuff is going to happen, right? Like, you trust that you will have the information when you need it. And you trust that you will know what to do when it's time to take that action. Okay. And then 8 is to take the inspired action, is to actually do the thing. And that, for me, that feels like an urge. It feels like something easy. It feels like an email I just have to write. Like, I can't help myself. I have to grab my phone and write out an email. Or it feels like a podcast. I just have to come and record it. Like, it just feels easy, and like, I don't have to overthink it at all. I'm just doing it. Okay. So your job, you have to take that inspired action. And if your brain tries to talk you out of it, don't let it. Just act on the inspiration. So if you have an idea, you're like, oh, I just thought of Mike from my previous work. I should probably reach out to him. He'd mentioned something about talking about this opportunity if I needed help or whatever. I should definitely reach out to him. Then just do it. Like, do it as quickly as you can. Don't let your brain talk you out of it, right? Because your brain will start saying, oh, but if you reach out to him, maybe it's too close to the holidays. Maybe he's going to be too busy. Maybe he won't respond. Oh, I don't know what to say. Like, maybe I should wait and ask somebody exactly how I should word this message before I send it. Like, no, just do it. Okay. The best things come from that inspired action. And then step 9 is being in the energy of receiving it, being in that confident expectation that it is happening for you. And as long as you are in that confident expectation, and you might be reworking these 9 steps, like especially the one where you are embodying the new story, you're believing the new story, which will require you to shift back into the new story, because you'll be in and out of like the old story, the old version of you. You'll have to shift yourself very intentionally back into the new story. Then you will have what you need. You have everything you need to make this happen. And you will need to receive the thing. So you will have to be in receptive energy as far as confident expectation goes. You will know that that thing is yours. All right, those are the 9 steps. So in my identity challenge, which we just wrapped up, which will be available for self-study, by the way, we dug into a lot of these things with a lot of people's specific limiting beliefs. We shifted them and we got them on a new path. So you will have stories that are coming up from Max that you won't even know necessarily are problem. You might just think, oh no, that's the way it is, right? But you actually want to create the new stories as that's just the way it is, right? So if you could get on board with a belief like job offers come to me easily, like people are always offering me jobs, that is one of my core beliefs, and that is truth. I constantly get job offers, even from people that I haven't worked with for years. They're like, oh, would you consider, applying for this? Would you consider coming back? Oh, we love your content. Would you do that? Like, it just happens. Like, I get job offers, right? And it's not something that I ever thought was not a thing. Like, I'm just like, oh yeah, that is the way it is, right? And because I believe it, that is true, right? So with that said, we dive deep into this process inside the Identity Challenge. There are, I believe, more than 30 videos in there of me answering specific questions on this process, helping all of the participants shift specific beliefs that they had and helping them to emerge through the process in a new state, in a new place, and be able to create in a new, completely different way for them. So the only reason something is hard is because you are believing it's hard and you're seeing the evidence of it being hard and you're perpetuating that being hard, right? And so that's a very common belief, like, oh, it's hard. It's hard to get the job I want. It's hard to do this. It's hard to do that. And that is one of Max's things. He's like, oh, it's hard. And then he'll be like, oh, look, but it's hard for that person. And it's hard for that person. And look, see, look at all these things. The job market is really tough right now. It's hard. And while there's truth to that, well, there's truth to the things that are happening in the world. Your truth is what you decide for yourself. Now, I know that's controversial for some people. They're like, oh yeah, you can't just believe your way into a new reality. But you know what? I believe that's true. Like, you can actually believe yourself into a new reality. You can actually create what you want from your mindset alone. All right, that's what I've got for you today, and I will talk to you next week.